Hello, welcome to the Yarn and Yarns YouTube channel. My name is Angela and all of the places you can find me should be linked in the description box just below this video. Welcome to my YouTube channel, and here on the channel you'll find me posting weekly vlogs about what I have been making in the preceding week. I knit, spin, crochet and occasionally weave. You're most welcome here. I hope that you enjoy the video. As always, I want to say a thank you to anyone who is spending some time with me this week. I appreciate you taking some time out of your week to sit as I chat along about what I've been making. Whether it's your first time here or if you have been here many times before, I hope you enjoy the video. This week I have knitting, spinning and crochet to share with you. I also have a small acquisition section and we'll have a little chat about our make along at the end of the video. But without further ado, let's get started. I think I will start with crochet this week. I have a new crochet project on the needles. Last week I showed my wonky llama and I think many of you enjoyed seeing wonky llama, and I got some interesting information about llamas in the comments below that video. So I always love to learn new things, so I appreciate anyone who expanded my llama knowledge. In one of my Yarn and Yarns extra videos, so as well as the weekly chatter that I post, I've been trying to post little additional videos every now and then, and I've been doing that throughout this year, but I'm trying to do it a bit more frequently now that I'm at home. So I'm trying to put up a few extra videos each week, and one of the videos last week I chatted about ripping back or frogging some projects that hadn't worked out. Both of those were crochet projects. Both of them were sweaters. One was a project that I'd put onto my frog pile ages ago. I just hadn't got around to ripping back the yarn. And the other one was a project that I've been working on recently that, although I was really enjoying the make, I had to admit to myself that I would never wear the finished object, so there was not really much point in carrying on with that. One of the projects I frogged, I have already started reusing the yarn. Probably at some point last year, maybe even the year before, I started making a crochet tunic from this lovely yarn from Stylecraft. It's Stylecraft Boutique Elements. I don't have any labels, or do I? Yes I do, that's a lie. It's a good way to start the podcast, isn't it? Would I lie to you? So yes, it's Stylecraft Boutique Elements in the Iron colourway, shade 130, and this is a blend of 80% acrylic and 20% wool. And I made the back and the front of this tunic, but I think I was making the largest size in the pattern. It was a Stylecraft pattern, and the neck line was just ridiculous. It wasn't like the shoulders were hanging off of my shoulders both sides, and I just really could not be bothered to fix that. I could have fixed it myself, but I didn't like the project enough to put the effort in to fixing a mistake on a pattern which is paid for and in my opinion should have been tested and graded in all sizes, but that is another issue. So yes, I pulled out that yarn last week and I have immediately started a new project. It's a really simple project. I've got quite a big quantity of the yarn, but I decided I wanted to use it and get it out of my stash straight away so it wouldn't sit languishing. So I'm holding the yarn together, so two strands together, and I am making a really basic granny rectangle blanket. So it's working up quite quickly. You can see lots of ends hanging off because I've got quite a lot of balls to join in various places. So yeah, holding the yarn together, making a really nice squishy fabric. I'm using a 6mm hook. I have a clover hook. The Boutique Elements is a double knit yarn. I probably would have gone up a hook size or two, even bigger than the 6, but I couldn't find any hooks. I had a 6 and I had a 10, and a 10mm would have just been too big. So I went with the 6 and I'm really pleased with the fabric this is making. It's fairly dense, but it's also really nice and squishy, and I think this will make a really lovely blanket. I decided to go for a rectangle rather than a square just because it's something slightly different. I mean, the idea is the same and the ease of making it is the same. It just starts slightly differently in the middle. So with a traditional granny square, you usually start with a chain that you make into a circle, and then you're working your first round into that circle. With the rectangle, you actually create a longer chain, and then you work both sides of the chain. So you go along the top and then you go back underneath the chain and work into the other side. You need a chain that is a multiple of 3. It's fairly straightforward once you get going, because it's the same idea as a square. You just keep going and you make sure you're keeping your corners in the right places. But you're just doing your treble clusters. That's treble UK term, or a double in US term. All around the edges and into the corners. So yeah, a really simple make, and I'm really enjoying it. If you are interested in making a rectangle, if you've perhaps done granny squares and not rectangles, there's quite a few nice tutorials to get you started on YouTube. I'm trying to think. I think Bella Coco, is that the YouTube channel, Bella Coco, who does all the crochet? Anyway, if you type in a granny rectangle into YouTube, you'll find several instruction videos on how to start if you're interested. I'm not entirely sure what I will do with this project yet. Originally I was just going to crochet a couple of sort of baby blankets to put in my charity box, but I'm really liking the fabric that I've got from this hook size and this yarn, and if I can get a big enough blanket for a decent sort of adult lap blanket out of this yarn, I've got a fair amount. I'm keeping it in this project bag, which is a tote bag. It was a gift to me by my lovely friend Lisa. No skein, no gain. And there's quite a lot of yarn in there. It makes up to be a decent sort of lap size blanket for an adult. Then I might actually gift this to my in-laws for Christmas, next Christmas. Last year I made them a knitted blanket, and that one has pretty much been commandeered by my mother-in-law. So I thought it might be nice this year to make another one, so that my father-in-law can also have a lap blanket. He gets to steal it every now and then when mother-in-law is not not using it, which is not very often, I believe. They have a really nice sort of deep brown, sort of walnutty sofa, so I thought this would look really nice in their living room, but it's just going to depend on whether it gets to be a big enough size. It should be quite nice. Obviously a crochet blanket like this is fairly open. I'm using an acrylic blend yarn, so it wouldn't be as warm as the blanket that I made last year, which was a pure wool blanket. However, I think the density of this crochet will mean that it'll be a fairly heavy blanket, so you'll get that nice kind of cozy, comforting feeling from the weight of the blanket, and it does have a wool content, so it would be slightly warmer than just a pure acrylic. Managed to talk quite a lot about what is basically a really simple project. I do struggle a bit with crochet. I love doing it. It's just that my wrist doesn't enjoy crocheting a lot, so with the thicker hook and the sort of density of this blanket, I'm trying to work maybe a round or two every now and then, but it's relatively fast growing, so even though I'm not working on it much, I'm hopeful that it will grow fairly quickly. I think I started this on Thursday, it's now Monday, so you know, it's grown substantially. I'm not as prolific a crocheter as other people out there, but yeah, I am pleased with the progress that I'm making, and I really love these colours, which is obviously why I picked it for a tunic for me to start with. But yeah, I think it's going to make a lovely gift one way or another, whether it be for my charity box or for my in-laws, we'll see. Next on to spinning this week. I've got a finished spin to show you and a couple of spins in progress. Finished spin is a project that I've been working on my drop spindle for a little while. I say this is finished. This yarn has not yet had a bath, which helps to set the twist in the yarn. So this is straight off of the spindle yesterday. And it's some lovely Manx Lofton fibre that I purchased at Wonderwall last year, which is a fibre festival that happens here in Wales. And I purchased 3 little bats of fibre from a Welsh small holding who are producing their own fibre. And yeah, it's spun up into this really lovely textured yarn. I blended this fibre a little bit more on my hand carders and made it into rolags before I spun it, because I was struggling to spin straight from the bat. It's quite textured, quite lumpy bumpy, not very smooth. Just by carding it slightly more and making it into those rolags helped me to spin It's made this gorgeous textured yarn in this lovely sort of corally peach colour. There's some pops of red and some yellows, and yeah, I really, really love how this yarn turned out. I spun it entirely on my drop spindle, or one of my drop spindles, this spindle here, which was a gift from my friend Sal. Hi Sal, if you're watching. And I wound it up into a centre pull ball and 2-plied it back onto itself. I haven't, as I say, yet soaked it, so I don't know yet until it's been washed and dried how many meters this yarn is, but it's been a really lovely spin project and I love this colour. I popped a new project straight onto my spindle after I finished that yesterday. I have been attempting to organise and tidy up my craft room. It's a bit of a slow job for 2 reasons. There's a lot of reorganising and tidying to do, but also because the sun's been shining and I've been spending more time outside than inside. If the weather forecast is to be believed, we might have a couple of days of rain this week, so that might give me the final push to get the rest of my organisation and tidying done. In the process of reorganising and tidying, I found a few little samples, like teeny tiny samples of fibre that have been sent to me with various fibre orders. So I decided just to keep them handy, and I'm going to spin them up on my spindle. So got a little sample of Dorset down in there. This one is merino, alpaca, camel and silk, which should be really interesting to spin. And then this one is a bit of a mystery. I have no idea. It was like a mini rolag. So I'm just going to spin them all straight onto this spindle, one after the other, and then I shall 3-ply them. But then I'll separate back out the different fibres again as I 3-ply into 3 little mini skeins. And I'm thinking there'll only be tiny amounts of fibre from these, but they'll probably make a nice amount for just a little beard or something on one of my gnomes. Can you see, as part of my reorganisation, I've put my gnome army behind me. So I'm planning to rearrange those and perhaps stand some of the ones on the back on boxes so you can see them all. Use tiny little quantities of fibre for the beards, so I thought in these kind of colours they would make great little samples for making beards on my gnomes. I've been working on a spin on my wheel this week too, and again this was another big bat that I purchased from Wonderwall last year, and it comes from You Spinning Me a Yarn, and you'll find them as youspinningmeayarn.co.uk. It's a fibre farm in Wales, and I bought this bat from them, which is Shetland plus a crossbred Gotland. So yeah, I picked this up as 145 grams. So I've basically roughly split the bat into 3 sections, and I'm spinning it up onto 3 separate bobbins, and I'll do a traditional 3-ply. So this is one of the bobbins that I have from that fibre. I'm trying to spin it as finely as possible. It wants to spin thin, so it's doing a pretty good job of doing that on its own without me trying to manipulate it too much. I bought a small section of the bat just to show you what the fibre looks like. I didn't bring it all, it's all downstairs next to my wheel. So yeah, it's really fun. Oranges, yellows, there's some shots of this kind of like luminous green in the bat too, and I am trying to practice my backwards draw. This fibre is really nicely prepped, so it's helping me do that, but I still keep defaulting into short forward draw. But anyway, it will come with practice. But yeah, I'm really enjoying spinning up this fibre. I've spun 2 bobbins worth now. Obviously they're not full bobbins, but that's just the split of the fibre. I'm not really worried about what sort of quantity I get from this. I just wanted to try and use it as practice for that long draw technique. 2 bobbins spun, and I have just started on the 3rd. So with any luck this week, this spin will be finished, and I'll have some fun yarn to show you next week, fingers crossed. Finally, on to knitting. I have a couple of finished objects to show you and a couple of works in progress this week. So I'll start with the finished objects, and the first one is my storm shawl, which if you watched last week I mentioned that I'd picked this up because I wanted the nice rhythm of a garter stitch project. I'd recently finished the lovely isolation shawl, which is a pattern by my friend Charlie Button over on Ravelry, and that project was a real joy to work on, and I wanted to keep that feeling, keep that sense going. So I reached for a project which was one of my 12 cast-ons this year, and it's a storm shawl by Johi Locatelli, and I finished it quite quickly after I'd recorded last week, and I have managed to soak and block the project, and I absolutely love it. So here it is. A bit difficult to show because it's blocked out really nice and big. This is a one skein project. As I say, the pattern is Storm by Johi Locatelli, and it is a really nice garter shawl with alternating sections of these big sort of drop stitches and then a few eyelet rows. And when I showed you this last week, I think I had just finished the last drop stitch row, and that is basically where the pattern ends, but I still had a fair bit of yarn left in my skein. It was 100 grams of hand spun yarn, and I wanted to use up as much as possible. So I basically added a little bit of an extra garter stitch section. Actually, the pattern may call for a couple of garter stitch rows before you do the picot bind off, but I added more garter stitch rows, then I threw in another eyelet row just for fun, and finished with another little garter stitch row before I did the picot bind off. I ended up with just this teeny tiny quantity of yarn left. I did have to unpick my bind off the first time. I added another row of garter stitch, and then I got to about 30 or 40 stitches left on the bind off, and I ran out of yarn. So I had to unpick what I'd done and another row, but then rebound off. And yeah, I just love this. It looked a bit small before I blocked it, but as I say, it's blocked out beautifully. It's a really nice sort of size for a one skein shawl. Just pop that on just to show you. There's plenty of sort of extra fabric down here, and yeah, I'm just really pleased with it. This is so light and squishy. The fibre was a blend of merino and silk from Ashford. This is their poppy seed colourway, and the fibre was gifted to me by my lovely friend Tracy, and yeah, it was a couple of years in the making all told, because she gifted me the fibre back in 2018 when we went to New Zealand. It took me a while to spin it and then obviously to knit it up. So yeah, really pleased with how that has turned out. It's a really nice pattern, a good mix of sort of mindless garter stitch with a little bit of interest, and a brilliant project. If you've got a special skein in your stash that you've been wondering what to do with, I can highly recommend this pattern. It's slightly asymmetric, so you cast on sort of here, and one wing is longer than the other. There's a short row wedge to do in amongst the garter stitch sections. So yeah, I'm so pleased with how this turned out, and I think I said last week, shouldn't toot my own horn, but I'm just really proud of this yarn that I spun. So I'm glad that I found a lovely project to show it off in. My second finished object is also another one from my hand spun yarn, and yes, you might have guessed it, it's another gnome. Wait, Angela, you might say, is that not just the gnome that you showed off last week? No. I have sister gnomes. This was the one that I made last week, and you might remember me saying that I had enough yarn left to make another, and I was going to go up a needle size or two just to make it a little bit easier on my hands, and I did that. She is slightly bigger, I think you can see. I went up to, so this one was knit on a 3mm needle, this was done on 4. The fabric is probably slightly looser than I would like for one of these sort of stuffed little amigurumi type toys. So you can see in places the stuffing is sort of showing through, but the yarn is nice and textured and kind of like hides any real issues with the stuffing poking through, so I'm not too fussed with that. But yeah, turned out nicely. I used the same little scrap of pink. This is now all gone for the beard. I literally used every last centimetre to make that second beard, so they're twins, the same but different. So yes, not really much else to say about that. I do have a third in progress. So this one used pretty much half of the yarn in terms of weight, and then once I finished this one I still had some left, so I thought, well, let's keep going and see what we can get out of it. So I've knit the hat and I've knit partial body from that, but as you can see I've now swapped to a different purple. I'm at the point now where I'm literally going to stuff this and start decreasing. So if I hold up one of these for scale, you can see I'm not far off finishing at all. I've changed my needle size again. So obviously this one was slightly too dense and this one was a little bit too loose, so I've gone for a 3.5 and that seems to be making quite a nice fabric now. I've switched, once I ran out of this pink and purple and black hand spun, I've switched to a solid purple. Again, this is also my hand spun, and it's another sample of the Manx Lofton that I recently spun up, and it's similar sort of thick and thin textured yarn to the pink and purple, so I thought that would go quite nicely together in terms of the same sort of density of stitch and the same weight of yarn. So yeah, seems to be working out quite well so far. So there will be 3 sister gnomes. Because there's going to be 3 now, I'm quite excited because I'd thought that I'd get 2 gnomes. I was going to give both of them away, one as a giveaway here on the podcast at some point and another in a package for a friend. But now I have a almost third. I think I get to keep one for myself too. I'm not sure now which ones will be given away and which ones I'll keep. I'll finish the third and figure that out from there. On to works in progress. So the first work in progress is another of my 12 cast on projects. Again, last week I recorded a little video with regards to my 12 cast ons and the progress that I'd made in the first quarter and my plans going forward. And I know not everyone has the time to watch all of the videos that I am putting up at the moment. So just as a quick summary, I finished 3 projects in the first quarter, and that got me thinking that if I could finish 3 in every quarter, then all of my 12 will be finished by the end of the year. That's what I'm tentatively working towards. I'm not putting too much pressure on myself. I still have projects from the previous 12 cast ons on my needles. It doesn't bother me, it doesn't stress me out. They'll get done when they get done, but it's kind of a, you know, unofficial little challenge that I'm setting myself. So I decided to pick 3 projects from the remaining ones that I have on my needles to work on this quarter. Storm shawl was one, so that is finished. Thumbs up, brilliant. I decided to pick another shawl to work on. This one is a much bigger project, so it will take a lot longer, but I have restarted working on my Vertices Unite shawl. This is a pattern by Stephen West, and I am knitting mine from a combination of different naturally dyed yarns from several different dyers, but the Christmas tree marker here shows where I was when I picked this up this week, and so I have knit a fair amount on this project this week. Striping together 2 colours at the moment. The brown is from Hey Mama Wolf and the blue is from Flourish Fibres. I've decided to make the large version of the shawl. There's 2 sizes in the pattern, so I'm going for the large. I've got plenty of yarn, so I've got to work this section until I get up to somewhere around 90 stitches, and I think I'm up to about 70 stitches at the moment, so I've still got a little way to go on the first section, but again, it's just garter stitch fun, and at the moment it's really mindless, just backwards and forwards, increasing every few rounds and working away until the section gets as big as it needs to be. So yeah, I'm really happy to be working back on this one again. I won't show off all of the yarns this time because I wanted to try and keep this video to a reasonable sort of length, but that's living in this lovely tote bag that was a gift from my friend Caroline, and the Christmas tree glass marker was made also by Caroline. She is a wonderful glass bead maker, and yes, it's a Christmas tree, and yes, it's going to stay on that project because I started it at Christmas, and yeah, it's just a nice memory, so I'm not worried about being unseasonal at all. And the final work in progress that I have to show you is a cheeky new cast on. And again, you may already know the project that I'm about to show you if you watched my Yarn and Yarns extra video this week. I have started a new sweater. I know I have no business starting new projects. I still have loads on the needles, I completely accept that. But I've also finished a few things and vlogged a few things, so I decided to treat myself to a bit of a fun new cast on. I'm actually being fairly restrained because I have got 5 or 6 project bags with yarn wound up and patterns stuffed in them ready for casting on, and I have been really resisting the urge to cast on all the things, so I couldn't resist any longer and I started something new this week. But this project wasn't even on my radar at the beginning of the week. So I had a little video chat with my friend Fiona, who is the brains behind Flourish Fibres. I mentioned that as in my last project. She dyed that lovely blue yarn, but we had a little chat at actually this time last week, and she showed off a couple of projects that she was working on while we were chatting, and one was the Simple Something sweater by Anchor Strict, and it's basically a top down raglan sweater knit using fingering weight, 4-ply yarn held double, and the idea is to use up your scraps, your leftovers, so that's what I'm doing. This project is living in this amazing gorgeous bag that was sent to me by Christine. I showed this off recently. Thank you so much, Christine. This is the perfect size for a sweater. It's absolutely ram jam packed full of yarn. There's about 650 grams worth of yarn in this bag, in scraps and in skeins, and yeah, I'm just having fun with this project. I actually have to, so it's a bit tangled, I'm trying to sort it out off camera before I show you. I'm actually having to stop myself picking this up at the beginning of the day, because I know that if I pick up this project and start working on it, I won't work on anything else for that day. It will just consume me. Working with scraps is really addictive. So this is what I've got so far. It's a bit tricky to show you because it's very bunched up. I'm on a very small needle at the moment. So here is the beginnings of my Simple Something sweater. So this is the wrong side that I'm actually showing you. So what is traditionally the right side is the wrong side of the sweater in the pattern. So the idea is you wear it as reverse stockinette stitch, which is this side. And you hold 2 strands of fingering weight together throughout the sweater and just have fun playing with your scraps and your leftovers. So I've started with the light colours in the yarns that I've pulled out of my stash, and I'll be working down to much darker colours. It's quite light toned and pastel-y at the moment, which is completely unlike me, but I'm really enjoying it so far. I think I'm going to have to be careful as to how I manage the sort of gradation into the different colours going forward. I've got quite a lot of sort of strong jewel tony kind of colours in my scrap collection, so they're going to be making up the bulk of this sweater. So yeah, I think I'm going to need to sort of fade those in gradually so it's not too jarring. So we'll see how I manage that. It's a wonderful project so far. It could end up looking like an excited child has vomited their rainbow cake all over my sweater. That's a bit gross, isn't it? Shall I cut that out? Probably not. So yes, at the moment, thumbs up. Going forward, could end up looking like a dog's breakfast. We will see. If you go to the pattern page on Ravelry for this, there are some interesting pictures of people wearing it right side out with their ends hanging out. So basically she just says leave your ends dangling on the right side of the fabric, you know, swap in your yarns as and when you want, or as and when you run out of something. So yeah, there's some interesting pictures of people just wearing their sweaters like that. It's a look. I don't think is a look for me. I will end up weaving my ends in, I'm sure. But I guess the idea is this sweater is reversible, so we shall see as we go on. It's literally all I want to knit on right now. It's just so fun marling the colours together and watching it grow. That is everything for what I've been making this week. I do have one quick acquisition to show you. I had a lovely Easter package from my wonderful friend Catherine, and I don't think Catherine watches, so but she sent she was one of the lovely group of lovely ladies that I went on a sort of mini retreat weekend with earlier on in the year, and she sent everyone that went on that weekend a lovely Easter package, and she sent us all yarn and chocolate and a toilet roll. Which, as we all know, is precious commodity at the moment. So she sent me these two gorgeous skeins from Brambles and Me, and I've not heard of Brambles and Me before. So this is the Ridge Base, which is 100% blue face Leicester, 4-ply yarn, and I've got the Campfire colourway, which is this gorgeous, gorgeous yellow, love it, and the Hot Toddy colourway as a contrast, and don't those look beautiful together? So I shall be looking forward to finding a perfect project. I'm sure it'll probably end up being a shawl. High twist yarn, absolutely beautiful. I know Ruth, one of the other ladies in our sort of little retreat group, has already started a Magpie Tendencies top with her two skeins, and that's looking fantastic. But I would imagine I might need, for my size, something slightly more than one skein, but perhaps that might be an option for me to check out as well. Lovely, lovely surprise acquisition that's come my way this week. I just want to quickly remind everyone about the make along that we've got going on over in the Ravelry group. We've actually got two, so there is a year-long finish your 12 cast on projects thread over there in Ravelry. The chatter thread's still open, so you can sort of cheerlead if you need some help getting going with one or some of your projects if they're languishing. Then chat away in the thread over there. I'm sure there's lots of people over there who are willing to cheerlead you and give you support. There's also a finished objects thread for that cowl, so if you finish any of your projects that you started for the 12 cast ons, pop a picture over in that thread, and every quarter I shall be doing a prize draw. I also have the New Techniques make along, which will be running until the end of May. I still need to go over and update that thread. It was originally the end of April, but I've decided to extend it to the end of May. And the idea behind that one is you just try something new, something you haven't tried before. Any knitting technique, crochet technique, weaving, spinning, anything that you want to give a go that you haven't tried before. Do a bit of embroidery if you want. Anything that's going to make your heart happy during these difficult times. If you want to set yourself a mini little challenge, and there is no obligation to finish your project, just start it, pop a picture of what you're doing in that thread, and I shall draw from all of the posts that have a picture attached to them. I think I will give away for that make along the beautiful skein of yarn that was donated to the podcast by Attic Spin Dye, and I showed that off a couple of weeks ago, so yeah, well worth hopping in on that make along because that yarn is absolutely beautiful. As always, I want to say a massive thank you to everyone just for being here, for supporting the channel, but also especially to the lovely people out there who have been able to donate to the channel via my Ko-fi link, which you'll find below. It's a way of just supporting the content that I put up here on the channel. I've been spending lots of time, extra time, making videos for the channel recently, and I am more than happy to do that. But if you would like to show your support and donate a coffee as a thank you, then that would be much appreciated. I try to plough as much of that money back into improving the content on the channel as possible, either by purchasing new equipment which helps me to record, purchasing prizes and postage for those prizes for our make-alongs. I've recently purchased a couple of books that I'm going to review here on the channel, so anything that I use that money for, I hope to either make content or help to improve the content here on the channel. By being here, watching, liking, subscribing, you are supporting the Yarn and Yarns community. I like to be open and honest about the donations that I've received, and since I last chatted about coffee donations, which may have been 2 or 3 weeks ago, I have been absolutely blown away by your kind support. I've received £71 worth of donations. Also, I was just wondering, let me know whether you need me to continue to let you know the monetary value of the donations. I wanted to be open and honest from the start, but I mean, I don't know if that's of value to you or not, so I'm happy to continue to do that. But if you don't need me to, then perhaps I will just say my thank yous and not particularly say about how much money I've received. So yeah, just let me know if you've got strong feelings about that either way. All that remains for me to say is that I hope you are managing to stay safe and well. I try not to dwell too much on the situation that's going on in the world. We all have plenty of news that we're digesting all of the time about the very difficult situation that everyone faces at the moment. So yeah, so I'm trying to make these videos as a little bit of relief in that, and hopefully a source of relaxation for you. So I hope you have been knitting, crocheting, spinning, weaving along while I've been rambling, maybe sitting with a cup of tea and a slice of cake. Let me know what you've been doing while you've been watching, because I always love to chat with you out there. Thank you so much for joining me, and until we get to spend time together again, I hope that you get to do some of the things that you enjoy. Great big woolly hugs to you all. Bye for now.